I'm 50, what am I now, Tyler? 56. 56 years old. My son Tyler, by the way, little hand, he'll be 21 next week, and next to him is my nephew Aaron. They wanted to be here. So I was basically raised Episcopalian, and I pretty much stopped attending church in my late teens, maybe. I would be the Christmas and Easter guy, so the pastor there, the priest, called me a seeing ear. His name was Father Bill Gerhardt, and he was a great guy, but the Episcopal Church is way different to service than what we have here at ZCC. So it never really held my attention. I would daydream about things and everything. And the one thing I did get from Father Bill was I asked him, how to pray. And he said, just talk to God. So I've been doing that for a while. I have certain prayers I say now that have come to me through my journey. But just talking to God is what really helped me. And as you can see, it says a long time in the making there. So the Lord's been working on me for a very long time. And I hit a couple bullet points throughout my journey that really influenced me. And the first one was in 4th of July, 1992. It was a friend of mine, actually a friend of my wife. That's Kim, that's my wife Marcy's girlfriend, and that's her husband Peter. And they live in New Hampshire, and they had a son, Sean, born in 1991, and unfortunately for Sean, he passed away at 9 months old. But what happened was on the 4th of July weekend, he was at Boston's Children's Hospital, and Kim and Peter were staying in the Ronald McDonald House. And they invited us up for the weekend, and it's 4th of July weekend. I'm like, wow, what a great weekend to be in Boston. Maybe I can catch a Red Sox game at Fenway Park, fireworks, the whole 9 yards. And when we got there, Sean, 9 months old, maybe about this big, hooked up to so many tubes, so many medicines, so many things just to keep him going. It was heartbreaking. And I remember I had contacts in at the time, and they were somewhere on the floor after I got done crying. That was July 4th, and we went into the Ronald McDonald House, and we helped Kim and Peter get settled with things, do laundry, things like that. Well, on July 4th. On July 5th, while we were there, they made the decision to take Sean off of his life support. So he passed away while we were there. And the reason this starts my journey is that I've never really I met other guys here who have faith, but Peter and Kim's faith to me was like on this level, like way up there. And they never really questioned many things about Sean passing away. He had a certain illness that is in a recessive gene, and you could pass it on to your children if you have. But that didn't stop him, so they prayed a lot, and that's Eric in the middle, their older son, and they wound up with twin girls. And I believe one of them, Christy or Kara, has the gene as well, so she may not be able to have children. But they were blessed to have the two of them after losing Sean. And this is 1992, and I basically have maybe 2 to 3 things that influence me every year. So I'll go to 1993 and then I'll go on. So we might be here like an hour, hour and a half or something like that. Is that okay? Right? Because I got a lot every year. I'm just kidding, I don't. So that's 92, and we're gonna flash forward to February of 03, February 2003. Peter became very sick. He had peritoneal mesothelioma. That's where you ingest asbestos, you don't inhale it. So what it does is it attacks all the linings of your organs. So you can see what a robust guy he is there. And this is while he was sick. So you can see how it aged him, right? And it was hard because we're in New Jersey, he's in New Hampshire. We couldn't really spend a lot of time with him. And he was just a guy that was just full of life. He was a go-getter. If he would have lived to this day, I might not be here because he was one, Steve, you gotta come up to New Hampshire with me. You gotta live up here, man. This is God's country, New Hampshire, So I probably wouldn't be here. They did an interview. He grew up in Derry, New Hampshire, which is kind of by Salem, smaller town. but he was real popular. He was an attorney, and a newspaper did an interview with him when he was sick, and he basically said, listen, I'm in a win-win situation here. He said, if I die, I go to be with the Lord, and I go to be with my son Sean, and I go to be with my dad and all my other loved ones, right? And then he goes, but if I live, then I stay here with Eric and the twin girls. So they had a fundraiser for him, probably sometime maybe in the fall or late summer of '03. And we went up there, and he was like an 85-year-old, 90-year-old guy who could barely move. He was wheelchair bound. It's heartbreaking to see somebody who's in their late 30s, so full of life, and then deteriorate to something like that. So I remember when we were, let me see if I have another picture. No. Okay, so when we were leaving the fundraiser, I walked him out to his car, and I put him in the car, you know, and I said, listen, Pete, man, I love you like a brother. And he goes, well, what about like a sister? And I go, I don't know, isn't a brother good enough? You know? So he said to me, he goes, hey, Steve, pray for me. And I go, well, you know, this is '03. I'm like, you know, Pete, I'm not really the praying type. And he goes, well, aren't I a good reason to start? So I did, you know, a little bit. And I had some other things happen to me in '03. In June, I was across the street from my house with my son. He's 7 years old at the time. And we were flying a kite, and it got stuck in the trees. So I sat there looking, you know, he's upset. Dad, get the kite out of the tree, get the kite out of the tree. And I looked at it, I'm like, all right, how can I get this kite out of the tree? I can climb this one, I can jump over to this one, I can maybe get up to the kite. And then I went, that's not happening. So all of a sudden, it was like the hand of God just came and lifted that kite, and it came straight out of the trees and into the field where we were. So I've had experiences with God doing things for me and showing me things. And one of the other ones was, it was sometime in '03 as well. I was at the kitchen sink, and I looked down on top of the faucet, and in the water droplets, I could see the image of Christ's face. So I said, okay, you know, things are happening here for me. In October of '03, Peter passed away. October 11, 2003, 38 years old. And in Christmas Eve, actually the 23rd of December, I'm sorry, his wife gave me a New King James version of the Bible in honor of Peter. So I was like, oh, well, that's nice, you know. So I probably started reading it, and I didn't know much about reading the Bible. I started out in Genesis, and I got through Genesis, and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I kind of remember some of this stuff from back when I was in the Episcopal Church, which, by the way, back then, when they read the gospel, I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. But since coming here, it's all making sense to me. So things that I heard in the past back then are coming around to, you know, what I need them to be, and they're making sense to me. So I started in Genesis, and I might have gotten through to the second book, and then I kind of like, whatever, lost interest in it, I guess. And then December 10th, 2006. So there's a lot of gaps between the things that really influenced me, quite a few years. I remember we were putting up the Christmas tree, and I was stringing through some of the little mini lights. Tyler, my son, was taking out ornaments from a box. My wife was hanging stuff on the tree. And I said to myself, I go, you know what, Steve? I said, don't get caught up into the whole meaning of Christmas, you know, Christ being born, even though I know it's not his birthday. Don't get caught up in it, because it lasts for a month for you, maybe, you know. I go to Christmas Eve Mass, it's great, but I don't follow through with it. So I sat there as I'm pulling these lights through my hands, and I actually thought that. And all of a sudden, I'm pulling lights through my hands, and I look at my left palm right about here, and I see blood. And I was like, oh, well, maybe one of those little bulbs broke and cut my hand. So I go into the kitchen sink, and I'm running underwater, and you know, water mixes with blood, it turns pink, you know. So I see the pink water running down, and I grab a paper towel, and I'm thinking, all right, I gotta stop this bleeding. So I put it on my hand, and I held it there for a little while, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna take it away now, and I'm gonna see blood on the napkin, right, or the paper towel. And I pulled it away. There was nothing on the paper towel and nothing on my hand. So I looked at it, and I went, what the heck? Why, what is this, you know? So the only thing I could think was that, all right, this is God like working on me a little more, because I know these are all the religious books, I guess you could say, faith books I have. I went out and I bought this one right after that happened to me because I thought this was the sign now. All right, Steve, I said to myself, Steve, you don't need to be knocked over the head now, you know. You see basically what to me was Christ giving me a signal that here's blood on my palm, right? So I bought that book and things started to change for me a little bit. Still didn't go to church anywhere. Still had a little bit of faith, but I wasn't where I should have been. So between 2006 and 2014, like I said, things started changing a little bit. And I started looking at things a different way. And things that would happen to me, instead of like saying it's a coincidence or it's luck, I would say it's a blessing. You know, I was blessed. One time I was riding my motorcycle on Lamington Road, and this buck came out of the woods. And it came out so fast, I said, all right, you don't have like a split second to make a decision here. So I got as far over to the right of the shoulder of the road, and I hit the throttle, and I watched that buck go right past me. And all I saw was either that rack of horns or rack of antlers hit me in the torso and killing me, or me going over the handlebars after I hit the deer. And when it passed by, my knees turned to rubber, they were shaking like crazy, my heart was beating, and I just said, oof, I'm blessed not to have gotten hit by that or hit it myself. So after that, I had a couple videos. Now, I'm into country music. I don't know how many guys out here are into country music, but I'm into country music, and I have a couple, what I call my go-to videos. And I watch them every once in a while. And one is Muddy Water by Trace Atkins, and that's Stephen Baldwin. He's in the video. Stephen Baldwin and Trace Atkins met on The Apprentice, so he got him to do that video. And what it is basically is that the theme of the video is he's not the man he's supposed to be. He needs to go and get baptized and become who he should be or who he wants to be. So he meets Trace Atkins in the church, and then they go down to the river and he gets baptized in the muddy water. Get it? Muddy water, right? The other one I have is by Brooks and Dunn, and it's Believe. And what that is about is that there's an older gentleman who lost his wife, lost his baby. That's a picture of them in his Bible. And it's a young boy who lives nearby, and he goes over to visit him all the time. And he finally asks him, he goes, well, how do you deal with this, you know? And the old man basically says, well, I believe more and more in the words written in red. So that kind of was hitting me as well. That's the last one for that. Yeah. So those were my two go-to videos. And a lot of times my wife would say to me, she's like, why are you watching those? Because every time you watch them, you start getting all emotional, you get all upset and everything. And I just figured, well, you know what? That's just the Lord working on me as well. So now we'll go to 2012. And I was at a memorial service for some other child who passed away. And I met Pastor Rob. And at that point, I'm listening to Star 99.1, and I hear his daily message and everything. So I'm like, whoa, you're Rob Kruger, you know? I was like, how cool is that? So I asked him about my cousin Craig, who was attending here, and at first he goes, Craig? I go, yeah, long hair, motorcycle. He goes, oh, Craig, yeah, I know Craig. He goes, I guess this is when you guys are still across the street in the smaller gym or wherever you were. He goes, yeah, Craig. Hands in the air, tears running down his eyes, front row all the time, you know, would stop, make sure his hair looks just exactly right, you know, in his mirror of his motorcycle before he came in. And I was really impressed. I was like, wow, this is cool. So in October of that month, 2014 October, I was just thinking that, you know what, Steve, you need to do more for your fellow human beings. You need to do more for mankind. You need to be more charitable. You know, I do certain things like buy a stranger a cup of coffee, stuff like that. I give money to charities, things that hit me, I give the money. One kind of hit me really hard was, I was in a liquor store of all places, and it was around Christmas time, I think it was in 2014, and there was a guy in front of me who had a case of beer, I think 2 bottles of wine, and he was holding them, and he was in line in front of me, and I said, hey, you can put that in my cart if you want. And he goes, really? He goes, cool. Because I just had neck surgery. And I go, really? I said, well then take a load off, put them in my cart. And he started telling me, and he goes, yeah, it's my second surgery. He goes, I was really lucky because this time I got a good surgeon who really fixed everything for me, right? And he goes, now I can pick up my daughter.